July 26, 1943, 8,000 meters above the German coast, 10:30 in the morning. The windscreen of B-17F exploded inward. Glass crossed the cockpit in fractions of a second. Wind at 300 kilometers per hour, minus 30 degrees. Flight Officer John Morgan did not move his hands from the controls. 1 second earlier, Lieutenant Robert Campbell took a bullet above his right ear. Motor reflex, both arms locked around the control column. 70 kilograms of dead weight pulled forward. The bomber nosed down hard, 30 degrees toward Germany. Morgan grabbed the column with his right hand, shoved Campbell back with his left. Campbell hit back, closed fist, mouth. One tooth cracked at the root, blood under the oxygen mask. He did not let go. The intercom was dead, tail positions, silent, 40 seconds of silence behind him. He did not know if anyone back there was alive. He knew 3 things: the column in his right hand, the instrument panel in front of him, the sun, which was west, which was England. 4 seconds of enemy fire had produced this. 4 seconds. What happened in the next 2 hours and 11 minutes, German pilots never modeled it. German ground controllers never logged a variable for it. It does not appear in any tactical doctrine from the summer of 1943. 1 hand, 1 direction, 2 hours. Watch what happens when every German calculation is correct, and 1 man ignores all of it. The 8th Air Force was bleeding 7 to 12% of aircraft on every deep mission into Germany. Crews needed 25 missions to go home. The math gave most of them below 30% survival odds. Morgan knew that arithmetic. The 92nd Bomb Group operated from east of. By July 1943, the parking line shortened after every mission. Replacement crews arrived. They studied the faces of veterans. The veterans said very little. Morning of July 26. Target, industrial manufacturing outside, one of the central production nodes of the German war economy. Route, northeast over the North Sea through occupied Netherlands, then southeast into Germany. Fighter escort ended at the Dutch coast. Past that line, nothing, was 40 minutes beyond it. Serial number 42299802. New from Boeing, Denver, February 1943. Arrived in April. 3 months of missions. 3 months of returning. In a group hemorrhaging aircraft, a B-17 that came back whole was worth more than its weight in aluminum. The official citation would later record this. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty, in action with the enemy over Germany. Flight Officer Morgan, although wounded, by extraordinary flying skill, managed to return the damaged aircraft to its base in England. Flight Officer John Cary Morgan, age 30, nickname Red, the hair earned it before anything else did. Born Vernon, Texas, son of attorney Samuel Morgan, 4 years managing a pineapple plantation in Fiji, 1934 through 1938. Men who spent years making practical decisions in isolation, under physical pressure, in conditions that did not accommodate mistakes. They developed something specific: operational patience, the ability to work a problem when the problem had no solution in any manual. They did not panic, they worked. The Army rejected Morgan's enlistment in 1939. Old neck injury. He returned again, disputed the medical assessment through multiple boards, argued on practical grounds, wore the process down through persistence rather than charm. The board cleared him, driven, by most accounts, by exhaustion with the process rather than genuine conviction. He held the rank of flight officer, a warrant grade below commissioned status. His promotion to second lieutenant would arrive in November. On the morning of July 26, that rank was irrelevant. He was the man in the left seat. Right seat, Lieutenant Robert Campbell, first pilot, 23 years old. Nose compartment, Lieutenant Navigator. Upper turret, Sergeant Tyre Weaver, 20 years old. 12 B-17s lifted from in standard formation. Northeast, sky over the coast, overcast, above the North Sea, clear. Temperature at 8,000 meters, minus 30. Inside the aircraft in oxygen masks and sheepskin-lined jackets, workable. While the windscreen held. What happened next, German intelligence would spend months classifying as an anomaly. The first German fighters appeared over the North Sea, held distance, observed, did not attack. German intercept doctrine favored patience over opportunism. Controllers on the ground tracked the American formations on radar, watched the escort fighters, waited for the turnback point. The moment the P-47 Thunderbolts hit their fuel ceiling, waggled wings and dove for England. The Thunderbolts turned back at the Dutch coast. JG-1 received the order. The 190 had 2 seconds of firing window against a B-17 at head-on closure. German pilots had run that calculation enough times to stop thinking about it. Reflex now. 4 190s, reciprocal heading, closure speed 800 kilometers per hour. Each pilot under 2 seconds. They used every millisecond. 2 seconds tore open the tail oxygen line. 2 seconds shattered the cockpit. 2 seconds put a bullet above Campbell's right ear and a cannon shell into Weaver's turret. The rest happened inside the airplane, where they could not see it. The bullet entered above Campbell's right ear. Not instant death, not yet. His brain sent a final disordered burst of motor commands, arms locked around the column, both hands, full reflex grip, 70 kilograms forward through the controls, 30 degrees, hard, formation aircraft scattered to avoid collision. Morgan grabbed the column with his right hand, pulled against Campbell's full dead weight, left hand shoved, Campbell hit back, closed fist, mouth, blood. 3 meters behind the cockpit, Tire Weaver took a 20mm hit in the turret assembly. It did not wound him. It removed his left arm at the shoulder joint. Not a wound. A removal. Complete separation. Weaver fell from the turret onto the bomb bay floor. Blood crossed the corrugated aluminum deck immediately. Lieutenant came out of the nose compartment. He found Weaver on the floor, looked at the wound, looked at the hatch, looked at 45 minutes of flight between this point and England. One option. Made the decision in the time it took to complete that calculation. Fitted Weaver with a parachute. Found the hatch. Pushed a living, conscious man through it into the frozen sky above occupied Europe. Weaver fell. German forces recovered him within the hour. German surgeons operated. He survived. One arm. Never said it was the right decision. The math said it for him. Then moved forward toward the cockpit. Morgan did not know about Weaver. No intercom cut in the opening seconds. He had called into the receiver. Nothing came back. No feedback from the tail. No voices at all. Knew only the column in his right hand, the instrument panel, the sun. West England, hold west. The cold stopped feeling like cold after the first minutes, became numbness, then stiffness. His right hand began losing precision, the small joints responding slowly. 2 hours of open cockpit exposure at -30. The skin on his face began to burn. The fingers began to lock. Minute 10, the right hand went numb. He started flying by pressure, not feel. Minute 60, the fingers stopped obeying on the first command, only the second. He did not release the controls. The formation around the bomber saw what Morgan could not communicate. The aircraft held position. Speed nominal, altitude nominal, no visible nose gunner, no tail defense, structurally compromised. By every visual assessment, a machine in the process of dying. The other B-17s of the 92nd did not leave it. Formation doctrine, protect the aircraft beside you. A gap degraded every other aircraft's defensive fire. The 92nd closed around it and continued east toward. Appeared below. Bomb bay doors opened across the formation simultaneously. Altitude 8,000 meters. Temperature at the open doors 40 below. The bombardiers worked targeting. The formation held. The bomber released its bomb load with the group. The aircraft turned west. The section leader of the attacking 190 element had filed his initial assessment minutes after the first pass. B-17 hit. Tail positions, silent. Structural damage, confirmed. Standard projection, the aircraft loses altitude, falls behind formation, descends or diverts north toward neutral Sweden. He watched the bomber. The bomber did not go down. Speed nominal, altitude nominal, formation position unchanged. No visible nose gunner, no observable tail defense. Smoke from one engine thin, not catastrophic. He had seen the pattern before, dozens of times. Damage, deceleration, separation from formation, descent. This one was not following the sequence. He requested confirmation from his wingman. The wingman confirmed. Speed nominal, altitude nominal, formation position maintained. The section leader radioed ground control. B-17 damaged, one antenna gone, tail section penetrated, one engine degraded. Aircraft maintaining course and altitude. Recommended continued engagement with flak battery coordination along the approach corridor. Ground control. Continue harassment, coordinate with batteries ahead. Second pass ordered. 190s from the tail sector, the undefended zone. Hits registered. Shells through the fuselage aft section. One engine, more smoke. The aircraft did not break formation. The section leader could read the exterior of the bomber. The shattered nose. The smoke. The silent tail positions. What he could not read, what no instrument on his aircraft or on the ground could report, was the interior of that cockpit. One man, one hand on the column, the other pressing a dying man away from the controls, the sun marking west. The exterior said, dying machine. The interior said, not yet. He filed his second report. Continued harassment recommended, then watched the bomber cross the German coast heading west. He turned back toward his base. His training covered damaged aircraft behavior. It covered survival thresholds, formation vulnerability windows. This aircraft fit none of the patterns. The cockpit doorway stopped. Right hand, column. Left arm, Campbell's chest. 2 hours and 11 minutes, one man. Morgan was flying the plane with one hand, the other holding the half-dead pilot, and had been doing so for more than 2 hours. What he saw, left seat Morgan, right hand on the column, left arm across Campbell's torso, the only thing keeping Campbell from collapsing back onto the controls. Instrument panel, gauges, blood, both. The windscreen, absent. 300 kilometers per hour of German winter through the open nose. Morgan's left eye, swollen shut, purple-black. Orbital socket the size of a closed fist. Lip split in 2 places. Oxygen mask dark with dried blood. Campbell across the center console, still breathing, both hands loosely closed around nothing. Stepped into the right seat. Both of them worked Campbell's body away from the column, hands supplementing on the instruments. Morgan's right hand never left the column. Through the shattered windscreen, the dark line of the English coast. RAF Norfolk, Morgan called the approach, voice flat. The tower cleared him, long final, both hands on the column, reading instruments, the landing hard, one wheel touched early. The aircraft yawed, corrected. The runway caught them. The aircraft rolled to a stop. The doors opened. Ground crew ran toward the fuselage. Morgan climbed down from the cockpit under his own power. Stood on the tarmac and held still. 3 engines still turning. The 4th stopped. Fuel stains dark on the concrete beneath the left wing. Left eye closed completely. The orbital socket, a purple-black mass, size of a closed fist. Skin across both cheekbones, raw and tight. Texture of burned leather. 2 hours of open cockpit exposure at -30. Tissue damage identical to thermal burns. The glove on his right hand came off with difficulty. Knuckles beneath, white, stiff. 2 hours of continuous grip at those temperatures had begun destroying the small joints. He did not ask about his eye. He asked about Campbell. Campbell came off the aircraft on a stretcher, alive. Surgeons at the base hospital worked 4 hours. The bullet had not penetrated deep enough to cause the damage that wound should have guaranteed. Campbell survived, never flew again. He lived. Tail gunners recovered from their positions disoriented, nauseated, breathing. Oxygen deprivation at altitude is survivable if exposure stays inside the critical window. They had been inside it. They came out. In Germany, in a prisoner camp, Tyre Weaver was alive. German surgeons had closed the wound. He was in pain. One arm. Going to live with the knowledge that a navigator he trusted had made the right call by pushing him through a hole in a B-17's floor at 8,000 meters above occupied Europe. The physical tally from that single morning. 1 man with a head wound who should have died before landing. 1 man with no arm who was alive because of an impossible decision. 2 men who survived unconsciousness they never knew they had entered. 1 man with a broken face, ruined hand and frost burns, who had held the column for 2 hours and 11 minutes alone. Morgan sat in the debriefing room, cotton against his lip, one eye he could not open. He answered every question the intelligence officer asked, precise, specific, times, headings, ammunition expenditure, observed damage. When the intelligence officer asked how he had kept the aircraft in formation, Morgan said the formation had helped him. December 18, 1943, Lieutenant General pinned the Medal of Honor to Morgan's uniform at 8th Air Force Headquarters. 12 minutes. Spoke briefly. The men in the room had all lost people they knew. Morgan shook hand, returned to his quarters. 3 months later, he was in the left seat again. The target was Berlin. March 6, 1944. 800 aircraft over the German capital, the densest concentration of anti-aircraft fire in Europe. Morgan flew with the leading element. A shell found his B-17 over the city center. The aircraft began to come apart. 6 crew members died aboard. A brigadier general flying as an observer died with them. Morgan jumped last, without a worn parachute. The harness was in his hands, unattached. He fell from 6,000 meters, buckled the harness onto his body in free fall during the descent, pulled the ripcord at 150 meters. The canopy deployed. He hit the ground alive. German forces recovered him within the hour. Stalag Luft I Barth, Baltic coast of Pomerania, 14 months inside the wire. He was the only Medal of Honor recipient in American history to enter captivity after receiving the decoration. The record stands. No one has equaled it. Soviet forces reached Barth in May 1945. The gates opened. Morgan walked out. The post-war math was precise. One B-17 holding formation position under damage raised survival odds for 3 to 4 adjacent aircraft. Not symbolically, mathematically. The formation's defensive fire degraded the moment a single aircraft dropped away. Every gap created a kill window for the fighters outside. Every aircraft that held closed the window for the men beside it. Morgan held. The men beside him came home. The calculation was that simple. In 1945, Allied investigators conducted systematic interrogations of Luftwaffe commanders. The question repeated: why had the daylight bombing campaign survived when German tactical calculations had predicted its collapse? General, commander of German fighter forces, 1941 through the final months of the war. Formal interrogation, 1945. Full access to German loss records and operational summaries. Later described the pattern like this: the American crews demonstrated a level of determination we had not anticipated. Damaged aircraft continued on course. Formations held. Individual acts of will negated our tactical advantages. We could calculate losses. We could not calculate this. The United States Army Air Forces incorporated formation integrity analysis into B-29 training doctrine for the Pacific Theater in late 1944. Direct reference to European experience. Formation integrity under fire became a measurable training outcome, not a motivational concept. This language entered training materials and remained there. Structural damage destroys an aircraft more slowly than the decision to leave formation. That sentence came from the math behind July 26, 1943. Today, the case of Flight Officer John Morgan appears in United States Air Force Advanced Crew Resource Management curriculum, not as historical tribute, as a technical case study. Items under analysis: single-handed control management following loss of primary control input, dead reckoning navigation during instrument failure under stress, physiological degradation thresholds under sustained low-temperature exposure. The case is used because the data it contains is specific, documented, and not reproducible in simulation at equivalent fidelity. At Arlington National Cemetery, Section 3, a white marble marker in standard military format. The name, John C. Morgan. The dates, 1914 and 1991. Most visitors who pass it do not stop. The ones who know what the name means do. He is buried 40 meters from the grave of another 8th Air Force veteran. They never met. They would not have needed to explain anything to each other. A bronze plaque at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, displays the citation beside a photograph taken in England, winter 1943. Age 29 in the photograph. Left eye still slightly discolored, not smiling, looking at something outside the frame. Morgan was discharged after the war, returned to civilian life. Nebraska, southwest of Omaha, raised a family, did not seek public attention, received very little of it. He died January 17, 1991, Alzheimer's disease and stroke complications, 76 years old. The disease took the memories before it took him. What those hands had done lived in the records, in the curriculum, in Arlington, in the aircraft that came home, because one aircraft held its place in the formation. Doctrine does not produce what happened on July 26, 1943. Training does not produce it. The manual has no chapter for 2 hours and 11 minutes above Germany with a dead windscreen, a dying man in the right seat, and one hand that was still working. The column was in his hand. He held it. The men beside him came home because he did. That was the calculation. That was everything.